What do you think was the key for you to break into this world, more specifically at City?
I think for me personally, a little controversial, but I started networking my freshman summer. And some of those connections ended up actually helping me land super days at JPM, Goldman, etc. that I built as a freshman who didn't know anything. Second thing I would say is recruiting for tech banking specifically is a really strong love and understanding for tech. I grew up in Shenzhen in China, a tech city, so surrounded by all of that, and that was super important to help me build out my story.
What do you think is the biggest mistake though you see with students when trying to recruit for firms like City?
I would say networking is kind of put on a pedestal and it's done in so many different ways. I would say the number one biggest mistake is just making it too much of a numbers game and not personalizing it enough. I think some kids go out and send out thousands of emails and get no replies and then get stressed out over it. But the key is actually personalization. I would go in and spend hours on my emails making sure every email was tailored to that person, especially if it was a high-level person. So I got on calls with a ton of MDs and principals, and I was told not to. But once you personalize and really care about that story, those calls go the strongest and give you the best connections.
What is the best question that you've asked in a coffee chat?
What was your favorite memory working at a firm? That's always what I go to as like a cultural question, and that leads to like a ton of conversation that like open up the floor. For example, like it's like City what they do, and they go on like an annual golfing trip, retreats in like Big Bear or like Salt Lake City, Utah for like skiing, and then that's an instant way to just connect yourself and them and jump out of that professional setting, which is so good for a coffee chat.
What do you think rather made you stand out in your interviews when applying and recruiting for City?
Yeah, I think for me, they just like really love my behavioral story. So like for a lot of the questions that like, what were your challenges? What were your like failures? I talked a lot about like me and my mom's relationship as well as my sister and kind of their struggle. And so that was a really way to like build a personal rapport and jump out of like talks about like internships and projects.
What is the best question that you've asked at the end of an interview?
This is a secret question that we've been passing down through BIT for generations and years. And that question we always love to ask is, do you have any homework for me? And so I always ask that to all the bankers, especially the seniors, and they love hearing that because like, hey, this kid is proactive, likes feedback, and is super genuine. And that has led to a ton of great conversations. And it's also a great way to follow up after. You're like, hey, I took your advice. I've applied myself. Let's reconnect. And so it's a natural way into a second conversation to keep that connection super warm.